Well, good evening everyone. This is the first video which we will be doing in a series of short, succinct videos where we will talk about the Spiritist doctrine. It was decided that on Mondays now we will be producing these virtually for the benefit of the viewers, of you guys who follow us here on the Facebook page, and we will be posting these videos once they are produced on Facebook, also on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and just search for Love and Charity Spiritist Center, you will find our channel, and I encourage all of you to subscribe to it. So for the benefit of that audience, we will also be posting simultaneously the video here on Facebook and on YouTube as well. And we will be announcing these through our Twitter account, which is @LoveandCharity, and you can follow us there as well. And also we are on Instagram with the same handle @LoveandCharity. It's love_n_charity. Please feel free to come and check us out. We do try to post small passages from the various works of the Spiritist doctrine on a daily basis or on a weekly basis on each one of these social media tools to help in propagating the Spiritist doctrine. So without any further ado, the first of these series of videos that we will be doing will talk about an introduction to Spiritism. We're going to be doing a short introduction to it, where we'll talk about its origins, how it came about, what type of phenomena led to its creation, so to speak, and what kind of events caused humanity to have this notion that there is something greater, something that is invisible to us and intangible, something that we cannot see, yet somehow it's present at all times. So we will be talking about this in a brief manner in this short video, and we'll be using one of the short little books that most people do not really talk about or read from the Spiritist doctrine. And also, before I begin, this video is to benefit those who aren't too familiar with the origins of the Spiritist doctrine, of course. Many of us are followers of the doctrine and of the philosophy of Spiritism. However, we don't really understand its background and its history. So this video is for the purposes of benefiting not only us who are doing the study, but for the benefit of you, the audience, as well, to learn a little bit about it. And if you already do know about it, it's never bad to have a refresher on this type of content. So you can be more knowledgeable about it again, or perhaps be reminded of it and how it came about, so you can share it with your friends as well. And we encourage you all to share these videos as they're produced too. So once again, before I begin, thank you very much for your time. This little book was written in 1862 in the mid to late 19th century by Allan Kardec. Its sole intent and purpose was to briefly speak about the Spiritist doctrine. It served as a brochure for those who were unfamiliar with it, so they could read about it in a quick way, because back then obviously there was no tools, none of the tools that exist today existed back then, so there was no way for them to go on YouTube and search for a brief video about Spiritism as we're doing today and as you're watching now. And this little book is entitled Spiritism in its Simplest Expression, translated into English from the original French and from Portuguese as well. So I welcome you all to read a little bit about this book, or actually to read the book itself, because its content is brief, and again it serves a good purpose to remind us again of the origin of Spiritism. So let's get into it and talk a little bit about Spiritism. So for the purpose of this video, we will be reading from the little book entitled Spiritism in its Simplest Expression, which was published in 1862 by Allan Kardec, to serve as a brochure for those who didn't have a lot of time to go in depth and study about the Spiritist doctrine. It was basically an overview of its principles and what it meant and its origins. And it is composed of 3 chapters, the first of which is entitled A History of Spiritism. And we will read a little bit about the chapter, some of the passages from the chapter, and we'll talk a little bit about it. So the first part begins by saying, around 1848 in the United States, attention was called to a number of strange phenomena consisting of noises, raps, and movements of objects without any known cause behind them. These phenomena frequently occurred spontaneously with remarkable intensity and persistence, but it was noted that they occurred more particularly under the influence of certain persons called mediums. So mediums, in essence, we will explain more in depth about mediums in later videos, but mediums are basically an in-between, an intermediary. So if we look at a television, for example, a television set is a medium. A medium for what? A medium of information, of entertainment, whereby there is an original signal that is transmitted and the television set receives the signal, and then it emits an image for us to see. So the television, in essence, is an equipment or a tool that acts as an intermediary between two things. And this is what a medium basically is and what it means. And a medium here, in this sense, for the Spiritist doctrine, is a very useful term, as we will see later on in the explanations. And these mediums who could, in a manner of speaking, induce these occurrences, these events at will, allowing the phenomena to be repeated. There is a specific case that comes to light that I just remembered from the Fox sisters in Hydesville, and where they had a similar scenario whereby raps are being heard and noises are being heard in their home. And if you Google about this, you'll see how interesting this occurrence was and what it ended up being for them, and what they found out was the cause of those occurrences. So this leads us to believe that for everything that we see, everything that we hear, whether or not it makes sense to us, there has to be a cause or an underlying principle behind it. And this is the beauty of the Spiritist doctrine, because it provides us exactly that foundation. So for these occurrences, these events, tables especially were used for it. Not because they were favored more highly than some other object, but solely because they were the most convenient article of furniture and could most easily and naturally be set around. To begin with, the table would start spinning, but then it would move about, jerk, topple over, rise up into the air, and make forceful rapping noises. Rapping noises would be essentially just bangs, banging from which would seem to be coming from inside the table. This was the phenomenon that gave rise to the name turning tables, or the dance of the tables. So at first the phenomenon might have been fully explainable as resulting from some electric or magnetic current based upon the science of the time, or possibly the action of some unknown fluid, and such was the opinion regarding it. But then it didn't take long to begin to realize that these tables were expressing a form of intelligence, that these movements weren't just random, and they had some sequence to them, or there was some structure to it. So they began to formulate questions by asking the tables to answer these questions with a series of repeated raps or noises that would identify each letter of the alphabet. So one tap would be an A, two taps would be the letter B, etc., and so on and so forth. So as they began to acquire things to the table, and the table began to answer, it was clear that there was something behind that the table itself wasn't answering the question, because as we know, and as they knew back then as well, the table had no nerves, it had no brain, it had nothing, so it couldn't be producing any kind of intelligent effect. So we revert back to the medium. There had to be something causing that to occur, and the mediums were the tools that allowed this signal to be transmitted through them and manifest itself through this furniture, this table, and this example. So then they began to ask questions to it, and it showed intelligence. And therefore, if we derive this, the notion of the maxim that says for every effect there's a cause, or for every intelligent effect there must be an intelligent cause, we begin to see that behind these effects there must be an intelligent principle, or something that's organizing these events and causing these things to transpire and to happen. And the question was, what was the nature of this intelligence? And at first it was thought that it might be a reflection of the medium's or the onlooker's intelligence. But experience soon showed that the idea was impossible, because matters completely outside the thought and knowledge of those present were obtained, and which were even contrary to their ideas, will, and desire. Thus, the manifesting intelligence could only belong to some invisible being. The way to tell for certain was quite simple. Start a conversation with it. It sounds insane, but that's exactly what happened, what transpired during that time. This was done by means of an agreed on number of strikes to designate a yes or no, or the letters of the alphabet, as I had already explained. And this phenomenon was entitled the talking tables, as we had alluded to earlier. And when asked about their nature, all of the beings that communicated in this way stated that they were spirits and that they belonged to the invisible world. So here's an interesting concept, something that we cannot see with our eyes, something that is invisible, but clearly it exists, kind of like steam. If steam isn't dense enough, we cannot see it, but it exists. We know it exists because science has proved it already. And this is the beauty of Spiritism, because it proves the existence of these beings that are invisible to us through experimentation and observation. The phenomenon spread from the US to France and the rest of Europe, where for a few years the turning and talking tables were a fad and were a form of entertainment in salons or in parlors. but their novelty wore off and they were set aside to make way for a new distraction. And then after this all occurred, more serious people began to go after this event because they wanted to see exactly what it meant, what was its purpose. So they began to ask serious questions of the tables, and the tables began to manifest serious and intelligent responses. And then it wasn't soon from that point onward or it wasn't too long from that point onward that they began to figure out that there was a way to get these messages in writing. And therefore, these mediums that would be present at these meetings with the table now began to utilize a pencil or a basket as a form of equipment, or a medium again, or a tool to allow these invisible beings to guide the medium and to intuit or inspire them to write these passages or these answers to the questions being made at the time. Thus, these were done, and the sessions took on a whole new meaning. So now questions are being asked, and it was understood now that really these personalities were those that were incarnated or living among us before and now found themselves in the invisible world, or the world of spirits, hence the name Spiritism, because Spiritism is a science of spirits, of their nature. So these spirits came and began to manifest themselves through these mediums en masse in the mid-19th century. So we had the beginning and the emergence of this new revelation, the Spiritist doctrine, that brought to us the idea and the solidification which cemented the notion that there is something greater to this life, that life doesn't start at birth and doesn't end in death, that it goes on and it actually comes before birth, that it has pre-existences and successive existences, or pre-existing existences and successive existences. That's a mouthful. So it is very interesting. And skipping a little bit forward here, because I don't want to read the whole chapter, I encourage you all to read the book. We find that these spirits could express their thoughts by using raps and agreed upon movements, but then the writing offered them the best, quickest, and most convenient means. It is also the one they prefer. In the same way that they can enable the hand to form letters, they can guide it to draw, write music, or play a melody on an instrument. In other words, in the absence of its own body, which it no longer has, it can use that of the medium to manifest itself in a manner perceptible to humans. So the spirit is nothing more than us, the identity that's within us, the essence outside of the body. The body discards itself during death, but the spirit continues, the conscious continues, the essence continues onward in its incessant march of evolution. So it comes back because most of them are eager to get in touch or communicate with someone to find out what is going on, what happened to them. So in this essence, they came back to manifest themselves. And there was something bigger going on here during this time. There was a reason for so many manifestations that were so physical in nature, that attracted so many and so many curious onlookers, and even serious onlookers such as scientists and people of great importance in the society of the time, specifically in France, in Paris, the city of light, where the Enlightenment occurred during the 18th century and the 17th century. So the spirits themselves, they normally enjoy communicating, and they are happy to see that they have not been forgotten. They willingly describe their impressions when they left the earth, their new state of affairs, and the nature of their joys and sufferings in the spirit world where they now find themselves. Some are very happy, others unhappy. Some must even endure awful torment according to how they lived, in the good or bad, helpful or unhelpful use they made of their lives. By observing them in every phase of their new life, according to the position they occupied while on earth, the type of death they experienced, their character and their habits, as men and women, one can arrive at, if not a complete understanding, then at least one that is quite precise about the invisible world per se, so that we may take our own future state into account and foresee the happy or unhappy fate awaiting us there. So this is very interesting because it teaches us exactly what to expect. And it already gives us an idea of how to guide ourselves in life, because there's more to it than just this existence. And then we begin to get teachings from spirits who were more serious, because the questions that were being posed by serious personalities of the time. Therefore, because they were really seeking out something other than just the day-to-day answers to silly questions such as, who am I going to get married with? Am I going to make money in the future? What is my next job? Things that the spirits of a higher order, or those that were on earth in the past and have higher intellect, serious individuals will not bother to partake in. they began to manifest themselves in these meetings where the more serious people of the time were present. And so these were entitled the higher order spirits, because we have several spirits of several orders. Obviously, we, individuals who are incarnated now on earth, simple and mere mortals, so to speak, who don't know much, when we leave here, obviously we're going to leave as we are. But those who were the great figures of history, when they leave this life, they're going to leave as they were as well, these great figures. And thus they are going to want to continue to interact with us in a serious manner. So these spirits were entitled high order spirits, meaning that they came here to show us something, to share with us something, so that we who are forgotten, who dive into this deep ocean of thoughts on earth and forget about the true essence of ourselves, we have been given this opportunity here that manifested itself in the beginning of the 19th century of these higher order spirits to teach us about the greater life. And the teachings by the higher order spirits concerning all the subjects of interest to humankind, along with the responses they have given to the questions asked of them, have been carefully collected and coordinated in the Spiritist doctrine. And they comprise an entire science, an entire moral and philosophical doctrine called Spiritism. Hence, Spiritism is a doctrine founded on the existence, the manifestations, and the teachings of Spiritism, the teachings of spirits. This doctrine is set forth completely in the Spirit's book for the philosophical aspect, the Medium's book for the practical and experimental aspect, and the Gospel according to Spiritism for the moral aspect. By the analysis given below regarding these works, one can get an idea of the variety, extent, and importance of the materials that they cover. So as we know, Spiritism had its departure point in the commonplace phenomenon of the turning tables. But because such incidents speak more to the eyes and to the mind and awaken curiosity more than sentiment, then when people's curiosity was satisfied, they were no longer interested in the tables due to their lack of understanding. However, that was not the case when a theory appeared explaining the cause behind them. So here we see again more serious individuals getting involved. So now Spiritism, again another passage from the book, Spiritism is not a recent discovery then. The phenomena and the principles upon which it rests have been lost in the night of time because traces of them may be found in the beliefs of all cultures, in all religions, and in the most sacred and profane writings. The only problem was that the phenomena were incompletely observed and were frequently interpreted according to the superstitious ideas of ignorance. Thus, their consequences were deduced insufficiently. So then, it came a time in humanity where we were progressed intellectually enough and scientifically enough or advanced enough to comprehend a deeper meaning behind all of this instead of just utilizing superstition and thinking that these things are miracles. Because by applying science and the method of observation, we see that it cannot just be a miracle. It must be something within the realm of the laws of nature. So it has to make sense. Because back then, humanity in antiquity might have thought that lightning was an act of God or was a god. As we see, they attributed gods to all of the things that occurred in nature, and now we know that these are just natural phenomena caused by cycles in the planet. So as humanity progressed enough in the 19th century, they were ready to understand this in a deeper meaning and deeper sense, and that is why there was such a high level of manifestations of spirits, specifically because it was the right time and the right moment to cement all of this and codify it into one doctrine called Spiritism. And the truth of the matter is that Spiritism is founded upon the existence of spirits, but since spirits are none other than the souls of human beings, it follows that wherever there are people, there are spirits too. Spiritism neither discovered nor invented them. If souls or spirits can manifest to the living, it is because to do so is natural, and thus they must have been able to do so down through time. Hence, in every era and in every place, there have been demonstrations of such manifestations. The biblical record, for instance, is full of them. And so it goes on here to say, what is recent, however, is a logical explanation of the phenomena, the more complete understanding of the nature of spirits, their role and the ways in which they act, the revelation of our future state, and lastly, the constitution of a body of knowledge and doctrine and its many applications. The ancients knew the principle, moderns know the detail. In antiquity, the study of the phenomena was a privilege of certain castes that revealed them only to initiates of the mysteries. In the Middle Ages, Those who ostensibly concerned themselves with them were regarded as witches and were burned at the stake. But today there are no more mysteries for anyone, and no one is burned at the stake. Everything occurs in broad daylight, and the whole world is in a position to be enlightened and to practice it, for mediums may be found everywhere. And we will talk about this deeper later on in other videos. So the doctrines per se is taught by the spirits. Fragments of it may be found in the philosophical teachings of India, Egypt, and Greece. And so we see that there are nuances of it and pieces of it in the old documents of humanity, in the old written works of humanity, in the works of Socrates, Plato, Protagoras, Democritus, all of these old philosophers and important figures of history. They came and brought all of these initial research or reflection of this type of subject, of the spiritual phenomena and the origin or the cause of life and God itself. So then Spiritism is just nothing more than the solidification of all of these ideas in one place. It is centralized. So Spiritism teaches nothing new, but it is really nothing to patently and irrefutably prove the existence of the soul, its survival after the body has died, its individuality after death, its immortality, and the punishments and rewards reserved for it in the future? How many people do believe in these things, but believe in them with a vague, uncertain preconception and say to themselves, what if there is nothing to it after all? How many have been driven to disbelief because the future was presented to them from a point of view unacceptable to reason? So, is it nothing that a vacillating believer can say, now I'm sure about it? That the blind can see the light again? By using both facts and logic, Spiritism dissipates the anxiety of doubt and leads to faith those who have pushed it aside. By revealing the existence of the invisible world surrounding us, and in the midst of which we live without even being aware of it, it enables us to know about the conditions of our future happiness or unhappiness by providing us with examples regarding those who have lived. The unavoidable effect of the spread of Spiritism will be the destruction of materialistic doctrines, which cannot stand up against the evidence. And we see this today. There is no proof of matter, because matter, something tangible or solid, is in reality invisible without light. So we can't even prove tangible things in matter. Science has already proved that there has to be other things. Quantum physics has already proven that as well. So continuing on, as they are convinced of the grandeur and importance of their future existence, which is eternal, people then compare that existence to the uncertainty of earthly life, which is so short, and through thought they rise above petty human concerns. And this is a very important point, because as we realize that there is a greater life out there, suddenly the things of this earth become small and easier to handle and to deal with and to work with. In understanding the cause and purpose for their miseries, they bear them with patience and resignation, because they know that they are a means for attaining a better state. And then the communications with our already departed loved ones provide sweet consolation by showing us that not only do they continue living, but that they are even less separated from us than if they were still alive and living in a foreign country. So here we see the benevolence of it all, because it brings us this consolation that we didn't lose our loved ones, that we didn't lose those who have left this earthly life, that they are still around, and more than likely near us, manifesting themselves in ways that are imperceptible to us. But any time that we feel that emotion around us, or that deep sense of longing for someone, it might be because they're near us. We can't see them, but we sense them through feelings, because we are interconnected. Because since we are spirits, ergo, we must be connected to the spirits that are discarnate, that they are not in the body, because that is our essence. So we have to be in constant connection with them. So to sum up, Spiritism softens the bitterness of life's sorrows, it calms the soul's desperation and agitation, it dissipates the uncertainty or dread of the future, and it puts a stop to the thought of shortening one's life by suicide. By these very facts, it renders happy those who have embraced it. That is a great secret of its rapid spread. So then we see here the belief in spirits is also found in all religions, just as it is found in all cultures, because since human beings are everywhere, souls or spirits are everywhere. Their manifestations have occurred in every age and have been recorded in the writings of every religion without exception. Thus, one may be Eastern or Roman Catholic, Protestant, Jew, or Muslim and believe in spirit manifestations, and as a consequence, be in a sense Spiritist, because if you believe in the manifestation of the Spirit or the Holy Spirit, then in essence you have to be also a Spiritist, because it is a science that deals with the principles and the origins of a spirit, of the spirit form itself. So to whomever might ask if it is acceptable to follow this or that practice, it responds, if you believe your conscience is leading you to do so, then do it. God always takes one's intent into account. So basically, since Spiritism is independent of any ritualistic form and prescribes none, and it is not concerned with any dogmas in particular, it isn't a religion, because it has no priests, temples, or churches. It's just a study. It is a science of this phenomena, and it is something to bring light to this greater life that awaits us. So to finalize here, Spiritism enables one to believe in something, and it is better to believe in something than not to believe in anything. And there is a great passage, or a great short little passage from the book, What is Spiritism?, which is another really good book that we'll talk about in later videos, that says the following about Spiritism. This is the, more or less the explanation that they give it in a succinct manner as well, much like these videos. So if you bear with me for just a second, it says the following. Spiritism is simultaneously a science of observation and a philosophical doctrine. As a practical science, it consists in the relations that can be established with spirits. As a philosophy, it entails all the moral consequences that result from such relations. Hence, it may be defined as follows. Spiritism is a science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits and their relation with the corporeal world. So, since spirits have been manifesting themselves throughout history, throughout time, and we usually attributed them to being gods or demigods, now we have a science that teaches us exactly what it is. So it makes logical sense for us as mature individuals that we are today, with a whole body of science behind our thought processes. We are able to understand things a little bit better and have some consolation in the fact that there is something wonderful that awaits us. There is something wonderful happening around us at all times. And if we tune into the right frequencies, we can actually feel it and be happy in this wonderful reality of life itself. So I thank you very much for watching this video and taking the time to listening to my words. I know this is the first attempt, so it might have been a bit crude. Hopefully we'll fine-tune it as we go along. And in the next little video, we'll talk about the second chapter of the little book that I had just talked about, the Spiritism in its Simplest Expression, that was published in 1862 by Allan Kardec. And we'll go more in depth about the topics concerning Spiritism as we move forward and go along. So thank you very much. And as a quick reminder, I'd like to ask you all, if you do have the time and patience, to put some questions down in the comments area beneath the video, and we will accumulate these to put them into a list, and we will respond them in a separate video that we will do, or perhaps even a meeting that we will do at our center, because at the last Monday of every month we will be doing an actual live feed from our center, or we'll be doing not only a live feed but a meeting, a physical meeting that everyone is welcome to join, where we'll be taking questions and we will be answering the questions that you send to us via our Facebook page. So this is to increase interaction and to perhaps get more people involved in this wonderful study of this science known as Spiritism. So thank you very much once again from the bottom of my heart. And may God bless each and every one of you. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening, or a wonderful day, wonderful morning, whatever it may be. Have it. May it always be wonderful. Thank you so much.